Alright, so this is the semester 1 exam review number 2. It is all about chapter 2. We'll go over this and then I will tell you what I recommend you put on your note card. And then we will wrap things up for chapter 2. Tomorrow we will start looking at chapter 3. So first, let's go through the vocab. Adjacent angles. Yes? C, two angles that share a common vertex and side. Yep. Segment bisector. D is actually an angle bisector. Oh, G. Oh, yes. Okay, good. Midpoint? B, correct. Sorry. 4 is D. Already did that one. Complementary angles. A, those are the ones that add to 90. Supplementary angles. E, those are the ones that add to 180. Bisect. Hold on. F, yes. Where are we? Number 8, vertical angles. H, good. A linear pair. That's J. And then number 10? I, very good. An if-then statement. Alright, I'll give you a second to catch up with those. I would strongly recommend you put all of those on your note card, especially the ones that you're unsure of, just so you have them. Any questions on the vocab? All right, moving right along. Next, we are looking at some examples of midpoints for segments. So if M is the midpoint and the entire thing is 8 units long, how long is TM? 4. And how long is MR? 4, good. So if I give you the whole thing and I give you a midpoint, each segment that's created by that midpoint is half of the entire length. Alright, this other one's a little different though because now I'm only giving you one of the halves. So if M is the midpoint, how long is this guy over here?
12.
Also 12, and then the entire thing is 24. Good. So just depends on the type of question you're being asked. Any questions on those? That's when you're given the midpoint. Alright, the next section, you're finding the midpoint using the midpoint formula. I would strongly recommend you put the midpoint formula on your note card. For the midpoint formula, we're averaging the x values, so you add the x's together, divide by 2, and you're averaging the y values, so you add the y's together and divide those by 2. It's very helpful if you know what's what. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. When I add the x's, I have 3 plus 5. I'm going to divide that by 2. When I add the y's, I have 10 and 2, and I'm going to divide that by 2. What is 3 plus 5? Well, first it's 8, right? And 8 divided by 2 is 4. What is 10 plus 2? Well, first it's 12, right? And then you divide it by 2 and you get 6. Good. Step ahead of me. So your answer here is 4, 6. And again, that midpoint formula would be very important to put on your note card. What are your questions? Alright, we can squeeze 11 and 12 on this same page. So, on number 11, I am giving you the entire angle. I'm telling you that it's 60 degrees, and then I ask you for each of the smaller angles created by that bisector. So the whole thing's 60, and it's bisected, what's the measure of each of the smaller angles?
30.
30 and 30, good. Now, that is not the same thing as on number 12, because on number 12 I give you one of the smaller angles, and then I ask you for the other smaller angle. So if one of them's 80, the other one's 80. Very good. Then I ask you for the whole thing.
160.
160, good. So kind of like the segments on the previous page, it just depends what I'm asking you for. If I give you one of the little guys and I ask you for the other little one, it's the same number. And then the entire thing is just adding those two numbers together. Or if I give you the whole thing, you have to divide it by 2 to find the little halves. Any questions on that idea? Anybody need more time? Alright, let's keep it moving. On these next ones, you have to set up equations. The key is knowing which equation to set up. So in number 13, do you see these markings on the segments?
Yeah.
They're the exact same. What does that mean about the segments?
4.
If they're marked in the same way, like 2 tick marks and 2 tick marks, what do I know about these measures up here?
4 is equal to 4.
Yeah, they're the same. So you can set them equal to one another,
5 by 4.
and then you can solve. So what is x in this case?
6.
6, very good. Now, is that the same thing I'm going to do for 14? No, there's no indication that they're congruent on 14, but I do see this box here. What does that box mean?
90.
Yeah, that means when you add them together,
Put 60, 59.
you should get 90, and then you solve it. So again, it all depends what type of problem you're given. Alright, anyone know what x is? 15, great. What are your questions? Alright, in the next section we're talking about complementary angles. Complementary angles should add up to give you what? Someone said it. 90 degrees. Good. So the way you're going to do these is do 90 minus the angle they give you. That'll give you the complementary angle. Good. Same thing over here. What'd you get on the last one?
25.
25. Good. So the key is to remember complement is 90 degrees. What's supplement?
B was 180.
180. Good. Same setup, but now it's 180. So you're going to do 180 minus the 40.
40.
Careful. 140.
1.
You forgot the 1.
Oh, you're right.
And same thing back here. 180 minus 125
55.
is what?
55.
55. Very good. So the key is to remember what the angle should add to. So it's basically like for 15 and 16, what angle would add with this angle to give you 90? 17 and 18 are basically saying what angle would you add with this angle to get 180. So the key is to start with that measure you're looking for, subtract the part you know, that'll give you the part that you do not know. Again, great, great, great information for your note cards. Questions? All right. The next one, this goes with a theorem that we learned in chapter 2. If 1 and 3, angle 1 and angle 3 are supplementary, and angle 3 and angle 5 are supplementary, which two angles must be congruent? We learned that if two angles are supplementary to the same angle, they're congruent to each other. So you should know that angle 1 and angle 5 are congruent. If that is something you're like, I've never heard of this, go back to your notes I guarantee you'll find it. Chapter 2. Alright, another very important thing we learned in Chapter 2 was the difference between vertical angles and linear pairs. So, on number 20, angle 1 and angle 2 are what type of angles? They're a linear pair. Good. A linear pair, when you put them together, form a line. That's why it's called a linear pair. So see this line down here? That's a linear pair. What type of angles do we have in 21? Vertical angles. Good. Vertical angles are formed when you have two straight lines that intersect. The angles across from one another are vertical. And what about 22? Neither. Nothing special there. Just two angles. Do you guys have any questions? Alright, this next section is the tricky part because you have to remember how to set these up. So if they're vertical angles, I know they're equal. If they're a linear pair, I know they add to 180. So on 23, am I going to set these equal to each other or make them add to 180?
Add 180. 90%.
So ask yourself, are they linear pair or vertical? Vertical. Vertical angles are congruent. So set them equal and solve. So on number 23, I am getting that x equals 15. Now, there's one other pair of vertical angles in this section. Which number is it? 26. Good. 26 you would do the same way. Set them equal, and then x is actually already by itself, so it's solved, so you're good. So notice how those two are alike. They're both vertical angles. We set them equal. We found the value for x. Now, 24 and 25 are very different because they're not vertical angles. What are they? Linear pairs. Linear pairs add together to give me what? 180. So now you're setting up a totally different type of equation to find the x. So I need to subtract 140. And then divide by 4. So I am getting that x equals 10. What's the relationship here? Is this like 23 and 26, or is it like 24? It's like 24. When you put them together, they form a straight line. When they form a straight line, they're a linear pair. Their measures should add together to give you 180 degrees. Once you have it set up, solve for the x. I am getting that x equals 10 again. So I would definitely make sure you know the difference on your note cards. Maybe put one of each on there, or just describe what you're seeing when you're looking at these. But if you can't set the equation up correctly, you're going to have a really rough time solving these on your final. What are your questions? All right, let's see if we can write that if-then statement. So I'm supposed to write an if-then statement for every Tuesday I watch my favorite TV show. So if-then statements always start with the word if. If so if what? What has to happen first? Does the night of the week determine what you're going to watch, or does what you're watching determine the night of the week? I know. So, like, I turn on my favorite TV show and the day of the week changes. Does that happen? No. What is locked in? The day of the week. You cannot change the days of the week, okay? So the day of the week is what has to happen first. So if it's Tuesday, good, then I watch my favorite TV show. Good. Yeah, so the day of the week determines what you're watching, right? You can't magically change the day of the week by watching a certain TV show. So the day of the week has to happen first. That will determine what's on, and that will determine what you're watching. Any questions? Kind of a tricky one. Did everybody get it? All right. Final section. We are matching the properties. These are from, I pulled up the notes last hour. What section was it? 2.6. So if you want to look at these properties in your notes, they're in section 2.6, or in your book, they're in section 2.6. The reflexive property is the same on both sides of the equal sign. So which one is reflexive? Which one's the exact same on both sides of the equal sign? B. Does anyone remember what the symmetric property is? A, very good. Just changes the order, does not change equality. And then the transitive property, that's where you're sort of cutting out the middleman. So if this equals this, and that one also equals the third one, the first and the third equal each other. What are your questions on this? All right, if there are no questions, I am going to give you the things that I recommend you put on your note card. So the first section of your note card, maybe the whole front, if that's the way you're organizing it, should be dedicated to vocabulary. So I would definitely label it Chapter 2 note card. These types of problems, either explained or just examples, on your note cards as well. So I would make sure you know how to find the midpoint of a line segment, or if I give you the midpoint, what the measures of each side of the segment are. I would make sure you definitely include the midpoint formula. Make sure you have an understanding of angle bisectors. If not, put a few of those on your note card. You need to know what vertical angles are. You need to be able to find complementary and supplementary angles. You need to know how to write an if-then statement. And then you need to know those three properties that we just covered. So I will leave these on the board for a couple minutes. If you're unsure what it means, like I have no idea what angle bisectors are, ask me now. I will help you find an example or explain it in some way that you can put down on your note card so that you have it for the final. Remember, it might seem very fresh in your memory right now because we just went over it, but your final is not for a week and a half, so by then it might be a little less clear, so I would definitely make sure you get these types of examples down. Do you guys have any questions as you're just glancing through these? All right, you have the rest of class today to work on your note cards, and then tomorrow we're going to start Chapter 3, so raise your hand or just give me a holler if you need anything.